In this video, we're going to be having a look at a design problem we've come up with as part of our prototyping, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what the problem is. It's to do with ranged mouse control versus ranged controller control, and we're going to have a look at a couple of games, Diablo 3 and Torchlight 2, to see how they solve this particular problem. Let's start by taking a look at what we've currently got in the game. I've made my game screen nice and big, taking up the full screen so you guys can see it very clearly. And Ben's implemented these awesome gizmos and allowing us to see exactly what it is that we designed when we did our previous sketches of here's how we want combat to work. So when I click on an enemy, I was a bit close to show that there. Click on an enemy, he runs up and pew, does a ranged attack. Now I would drop that value down if I wanted melee, and he would run right next to him and then start hitting if I'd clicked on him. Now, I've got a challenge for you guys right at the start of the video, mixing it up a little bit here to keep you on your toes. And the challenge is I want you to define our current problem. So Ben and I have found a problem. I want you to see if you can figure out what it is. Now, I'll give you some hints. The problem is to do with ranged when we're using a controller. So this is the behavior we've spec'd out with mouse and then shoot. However, in our game, we've committed to supporting controller as well. And let me just switch over to controller, which you guys have been implementing. Ignore the lines. They're just kind of staying in the last place. So when I move around, except for the weird gizmo that's touching that guy, let me just take that away so it's not distracting. What is it that we don't have? We don't have a mouse cursor. So I want you to have a think about it. Here's our challenge. Given that we don't have this mouse cursor, what is our problem? And this is part of being a designer, is about problem solving. Game design really is finding the problem and solving the problem in the most efficient and elegant manner. So define the current problem with the controller versus the mouse to do with ranged attack. What is the problem that we're going to have? And then write down your solution, and this is going to be your design, because the design is the solution to the problem. And then share the solution for your particular game in the discussions. Now, your game, the solution might be, well, I'm just not going to support controller. And there you go, there's your solution. That's totally fine. You might say, I'm not going to support mouse. I have a different approach. Or you say, if you have mouse and controller, what's going to happen? So that's the challenge. I'll just jump back to the game screen so you've got it here. And the hint that I'll give you guys is that it's to do with, let me turn the gizmo back on, it's to do with the fact that when I click, I have a different option with this cursor to when I'm using the controller. So have a go at that and see how you go with that challenge. Welcome back. Hopefully that challenge made sense and hopefully you came up with a good solution and a good design. If it didn't make sense or if you were scratching your head, let me give you the approach that we're taking. So Ben and I have talked at length about the fact that we need controller. And here's what we spec'd out for mouse. You run up and you shoot, pew, and that'll be a nice, elegant range shot. If the enemy runs at you, then as a player, you can run back and take some more shots. However, I'll turn the gizmo off and I'll click G. Now, with the controller, if my controller is going to work, there we go. With the controller, there's no concept of the mouse. So what happens when how do I select him in order to tell my player to move to a point and then shoot? It doesn't work so much. So the solution we'd been talking about in the past was, well, let's just let the character shoot from wherever. You just push a button and then pew, a projectile comes out, and if he happens to hit a character, great. And if he shoots and it's close enough, then we'll do a little bit of aim assist and just say, make the projectile go to the character if it's within a cone. That's all good, but we still have this broken issue of when we have a mouse, we're limiting the range of the attack. You physically can't shoot your bow and arrow unless beep, 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 you run to there and do it, as shown with Gizmo here. Gizmo, there we go. We won't let him shoot. So you actually have a different functionality. The problem is controller and mouse controls have different functionality, therefore the game is going to be different. Therefore, we're going to have to tune the enemies different and so on, and we don't want that. You know, that's a big pain in the butt. So, how do we solve this? Let's go have a look at two games that I respect, that I'm using as benchmarks for, well, I'm pretty sure they've figured this out because they're good games. We'll go have a look at those and we'll see what they do for some clues. And those two games are Diablo 3 and Torchlight 2. So let's start by looking at Torchlight 2. Here's my character here, scrolling a little bit so you can see them with a bit more fidelity and what's going on. we've looked at Torchlight 2 before from a level layout perspective as well. Now, when I come up to enemies, watch what happens. Let me get a little bit closer. Watch what happens if they don't run away. I get some mouse over behavior, which is cool. They're glowing. Then I click, run, and then shoot from a distance. So that's a lot of what our current behavior has been modeled on. And I think for a mouse control system, it's great. And run away, and then shoot, and then pew. So basically, it's run to a spot and shoot. That's exactly what we've done in our game. It's cool. However, when I go and look and say, let's look at the settings, and let's see, controls, and mouse modifier, when I scroll down, you know what? Unless I'm totally mistaken, they just don't have controller support in their game. So there's a good chance that their solution to the problem was just make it awesome for mouse and don't worry about controller. And what does that do for combat? It means you have to get a little bit closer. Basically, it means you're not really doing range, you're just attacking from a slight distance. Because the behavior is the same as if I had a melee weapon. It's just instead of running right next to the character, I'm a little bit further away. I can't shoot them from here. I can't have a long pot shot. And remember, for now, we're just talking about standard attack. We're not talking about special abilities, because this character does have a ranged weapon that has a bit of auto tracking. I can shoot wherever, and it roughly goes to them within a cone. So what happens if I shoot over here? Okay, it just goes to nothing. If I shoot there, oh, it goes pretty close. If I shoot kind of next to it, bam, it gets it. So that's another weapon choice where it's basically just shoot straight out in front with a little bit of auto tracking. Okay, next let's have a look at Diablo 3. Now, I've got my guy who's got a bow and arrow. There's an enemy. When I mouse over, same sort of thing. It highlights to say, hey, there's a enemy there. You can do something to them. When I click, pew, shoots. Okay, no problem. But the difference is, if you can see this guy's all the way up here, I can shoot them even when I'm all the way down here. There's absolutely no run to the spot behavior that they've thrown into the game here. It's just as soon as you click, shoot the enemy. Now, this is a different paradigm to the one we've been looking at, which has been let's run to a spot, as in Torchlight 2. So we need to make a choice here and look at, do we like the way Diablo 3 does it, where as a player, does it feel good to just, there's an enemy, I'm going to shoot him? It feels a lot more ranged, doesn't it? It feels more like I'm a sharpshooter at a distance. It doesn't feel like I'm being told, no, you have to get close to him. And I'll see if I can find some more enemies. They're all hiding at the moment. Come out, wherever you are. Is that a guy? No, there they are. Okay, oh, he's had too many booze last night, too much booze. Okay, so this makes me feel a bit more like I can shoot from back here. It does create another problem that we need to solve, which is, look back here, I'm just able to shoot them and stay a distance. And we need to make a decision in our game. So Ben and I need to make a decision right now, which is, do I want to force the player who's holding a ranged weapon or is casting spells, do I want to force them when they click here to run all the way up to there and then shoot, making them a lot more vulnerable because they're closer to the action? Or do I want them to feel sneakier and stay back here and shoot from wherever on the screen, which in essence basically says you've got two modes. You're either shooting and just shoot at the enemy if there's an enemy there. If there's no enemy, then run to the spot. Or if you've got a melee weapon, then you've just got to run and get close to them. So it's a lot more binary. Run close or shoot from the moment. And I think I like this feeling. And, I respect Diablo 3. If they've done something, there's a pretty good chance that they've played it a lot, thought about it a lot. And I want our character to feel ranged. If they've got a ranged weapon, then I want them to feel like I'm a sniper, I can shoot from a long distance. When I've got the controller, it's the same thing. As soon as I point and click, my controller's not hooked up here. As soon as I point and click, it's just simply like, pew, shoot to the guy. That's the same with the mouse, pew, shoot to the guy, or with the controller, pew, shoot to the guy. So our solution is exactly the same behavior, with the exception of having a mouse over. The exact same behavior whether you've got controller or keyboard. And back to our build here, and some of you might be thinking, oh man, we've just gone and implemented this whole feature and now we're scrapping it. Well, you can still use that in your game, particularly if you're only doing mouse or if you want to solve the problem a different way to the way we're solving it. But what we want to do is show you guys the challenges we have and the problems we face while we're prototyping and what we do about it. Because if we only show you the solutions and don't show you our process to get there, then you're going to get this false assumption that, hey, everything just goes smoothly during prototyping. But no, for us, we're like, hey, this is really cool, but it doesn't quite solve our problem at the moment. So let's do some tweaks. After we've played it and we've run around with it, we know that there's going to be a better way to do it. So hopefully that all makes sense to you guys and you followed this design conversation. In the next couple of videos, Ben's going to be getting in and showing you how we implement this approach of the more infinite ranged weapons. That means that mouse and controller work great.